What's up, podcast? Before we start today's episode, I just want to make sure that you guys are following and subscribing all of our content at svaofamerica.com/assistance HQ. There you can find all of the latest and greatest content, podcasts, articles, and so much more. The link's going to be in the description, so make sure you don't ever miss a piece of content. It's a whole lot of assistance going on. And now, a moment from our sponsor.
Everybody, thank you for once again tuning in to the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, William Schultz. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking to a young brother from the East Coast, brother by the name of Angelo Roberts. And he had contacted me on LinkedIn and, said, hey, man, I just started a podcast. I see you started a podcast. And, why don't we interview each other for each other's podcasts? And I was like, yo, man, no, that's not a terrible idea. So what we did is we got in contact with each other, kind of felt each other out, and it felt like it was a good scenario for both of us. So the thing that's unique about Mr. Roberts is he is in part of an industry called the virtual assistant industry. Yes. Which is an industry that not a lot of us really know about unless you're really in business. And I think it might be, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a newer industry, or is this something that's been around a while? I mean,
it's still very new relatively when you think of industries. It's a 2000s industry, I'd say, roughly, 1999 ish. I actually did a small amount of research on it. I believe in like 1997 or 1998 or something like that. The term virtual assistant was coined when this lady was an assistant over the phone. She just kind of took notes and did a lot of things over the phone. So then from there, as the internet emerged, virtual assisting started, booming, because communication was able to be done over the internet. And that's really the basis of what virtual assisting is. It's just internet communication. So it's definitely new and very much a niche kind of thing. So unless you're probably in like the Silicon Valley area, you probably aren't huge, or maybe even New York. Like unless you're in the metropolitan area, probably not big on knowing what a virtual assistant is.
Right. And, and that was kind of what I was thinking, and when you had contacted me, I thought, well, this could be an opportunity to introduce this industry to my audience, because I'll tell you the truth, myself personally, I did not know much about a virtual assistant. The first time I started hearing the term virtual assistant when I was listening to real estate podcasts about a year ago, and I would hear, I hired a virtual assistant. I've hired a virtual assistant. I'm thinking, is this like a robot, or what is going on? And then when I jumped on LinkedIn, recently got more active on there, I started seeing a lot of people offering virtual assistant virtual assistants.
Yeah.
So I found out kind of what it was. So when you contacted me, I was like, this is a great opportunity to kind of talk about this industry and let people know that this is out there, because as you obviously know, the world is moving at such a fast pace, and we all have so much going on with family, with businesses, with side hustles, with TV shows and distractions. Sometimes you need somebody that can come in and help take something off your plate. Is that a fair statement?
It is. It's really why I even got into this business, because I, being young and in this particular predicament, I'm a number two kind of person. You just grow up being the person that watches the assistant, the person that runs and gets coffee, and growing up in an age of technology where you're the coffee runner, you're just trying to give people that extra hand. When you're able to do it in a way on your own terms, virtually, such as like we're meeting right now, if this was a regular meeting conference, you're still able to execute that same thing. So it's really predicated on just helping other small businesses, because everyone needs that help, but not everyone can afford to maybe bring someone in full time. So it's a really great balance.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show today, Angelo. And so just for you guys, so we'll touch this again later on in the show. Angelo's business is called Angelo's Assistance of America. So if you guys are listening, make sure you guys take a look at that if you're in need of some virtual assisting in your business. So what we're going to do is, man, we want to get to know you a little bit, Angelo. So why don't you tell everybody where you're from, man?
I'm from New Haven, Connecticut. For those of you that don't know where the small town of New Haven is, it is Yale. So if I'm maybe 5-10 minutes driving from downtown New Haven, which is where Yale's campus is located. And I currently live out in Hartford, which is the capital of New Haven. So yeah, that's Connecticut, born and
Oh,
raised all the
Is
way.
that Hartford, Connecticut? Is that where
Yes,
you're at?
yes,
Okay,
currently.
and then okay, and what was it like growing up for you in New Haven? Is that what kind of city is that? Is that where people would consider the hood? Is that some people would consider like suburbia? Like, what is New Haven like,
New Haven is 100% the hood. We at one point were ranked one of the most dangerous small cities in America, meaning that if we were on the size of, say, New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, we might have more violence than their cities. We're just a
man?
small
Like per capita, you
per
have more
capita,
violence per capita.
right?
Okay.
More, we might have
Yep.
violence,
Yep.
more violence per capita. So it was a very hard thing. I'm not going to say it was extremely hard because I relatively lived a sheltered lifestyle. I stayed inside a lot and everything. Parents did what they could, made decent money and everything. My father was a correction officer. My mom, nurse, both owned businesses and everything. So, um, yeah, it wasn't the ideal hood situation, but it wasn't your ideal suburbia situation either.
Right. Right.
It's a very neutral next door situation feeling and everything. So
You mentioned both of your parents own businesses. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yes.
What kind of business? What kind of businesses do they have?
So my dad is in real estate. He owns a couple of units and everything roughly around the city. And my mom, she residential care. So her being in nursing, liking to take care of people and everything, she got I don't know how to explain it necessarily. It's like a rest care home. That's really kind of what it's listed as. So if you know people that can't necessarily fully take care of themselves because they're mentally challenged, but they are able to do a lot of things on their own, it's a house for, people that just aren't as fast as other people.
Oh, totally understand. Totally understand. And is that where you got your entrepreneurial spirit, man? Is that where it comes from, your parents?
Absolutely. My dad has drilled it into me. He said it's not what you do with it's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make. So it's always been about budgeting and doing these so many different things. And I've done I've done lemonade stands. I've done like sneaker customizations. I've done trash pickups and clean, like you think of it, I probably have done it. So
Yeah,
definitely
yeah. Well, that's
stems
dope,
from
man. See, a young hustler, man, a young entrepreneur, man. That's beautiful, man. And that's definitely one thing. Just in our brief time talking, I really respect the fact that you have been in communication. You've been consistent. And when you said, "Hey, I got questions for you," when you do my podcast, you send that over. And honestly, man, that's a great trait to have because so many young quote unquote entrepreneurs, you don't see that. It's a lot of talk, right?
yes,
So,
yes.
I'll give you an example. I had a young brother from my hometown reach out to me about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, "Hey man, I want to jump on a Zoom call. Let's talk. I really want to get your advice and this and that." And then he wasn't on the call. And then he messaged me 15 minutes later and said, "Hey man, I thought we were jumping on the call." And I was like, "You know what? I've moved on. Like I've moved
Right.
on in my day." And he was like, "Well, I don't understand. I must have went to the wrong call." And it's like, "No, man, you slept in or you were out partying, whatever. You weren't on it." And
Right.
as somebody who's about your business, if you want to deal with other people, if you're going to give your hard-earned time and take your time away from your business, right? You want to give that time to people that are serious like you. So I just want to say thank you for being on top of your stuff. So Angelo, tell me, man, how did you get started in your career? You mentioned you had a lemonade stand, you did some trash pickup, you did some customized sneakers. How did you get from that point to where you are now? How did you kind of get your first, get your beak wet in the virtual assisting world?
Okay, so because you're limiting me on time, I won't give you the long version. Short version is fast forward through all of my entrepreneurial ventures. I am last year I got a job. Well, in 2018, I got a job as a bookkeeper slash office manager. Started in October, and then I was there for all of 2019. I quit in the beginning of the year, January 1st. That's when my 2 weeks ended. So in that time, the role grew to being what I am now, essentially. So the Craigslist ad. I don't know if you guys know about that or anything. I would apply to a Craigslist ad for a bookkeeper job. Went in, nailed the interview, got the job, and showed up probably over prepared. Like my overzealousness is probably what brought me on this track today. Without that first day, I don't think I would be here, because I showed up in a suit. Mind you, this is a pet sitting job. This was a pet sitting job. So I showed up in a suit thinking like I'm going to be in an office and all of this other stuff. And I brought my own laptop, brought my own bags, and was ready to go. There was no computer for me, nothing started, and I really just kind of took off from there. So as the role continued to grow, I started gaining more responsibility. So it really grew to being almost like a businessman. So I had so many different things I was responsible for.
So this business, the original business was a pet keeping business, and you were applying to be a bookkeeper. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And had you had straight on bookkeeping skills previous to that, or like a bookkeeping job, or were you like, yo, I just want to get into this?
No, I actually go to school for accounting. So my major in college, I go to a 2-year university called Gateway. It's a small community college in New Haven. I majored in accounting, and I've been doing, unfortunately, but to my advantage, I have been an accounting person my entire life. So I was 7th, 8th grade when I very first read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and everything, which led me on the journey. So I was doing accounting like in high school. All of my electives, like I did, like instead of study hall, I took like accounting and business courses and credit classes and stuff like that. I did have the ability and fortunateness to go into a private high school, so there was also that.
Okay. I was the complete opposite, man. I ran from math like it was a demon coming at me down the hallway.
As a lot of people do.
Yeah, but I tell you what, man, it's in today's world, data rules, and it is a great skill to have. So, man, that's awesome, because it's just, and again, because there's so many people that are like me, that makes you and your skill set that much more valuable to people like myself, because as my business grows, then I'll be hiring people you hire your weaknesses, right? So if that's a weakness I have, I would bring you on board for something like that. So you started out with this pet job, and you said you started out being a bookkeeper, but then you started going into being more management roles. So maybe can you talk a little bit how that role expanded and some of the different things you were doing as that role expanded for you?
It's a very small company. So, it was her running it, and then maybe 5, employees who were the pet walkers and everything. And so me being the bookkeeper, I was the only office person, like the only other person with office assistant and administrative anything. And the fact that I'm the one who had the, bookkeeping knowledge, let alone the owner not knowing what she was doing in the bookkeeping. So I'm walking into like a mess. So I was extremely excited. I was like, oh, I get to really show off my skills now and what I've learned. And it really just started giving me more stuff. She was happy with the results and just gave me more responsibilities. I had to start covering for other people's walks. So now it was like, doing manager roles of covering, making sure people are at their walks, making sure that the people are doing their walks properly and timed right, doing payroll. I worked all the way up to being on the actual bank account, because trust is a big thing in my business, being prideful on integrity and everything. So on that bank account, I was able to even cut checks. I never did, except for, maybe one time. However, it was really more or less because how the role evolved into when she would step away or go on vacation to Canada, for the time that she did, it was my job to be not only the point of communication, but make sure everything was able to run smooth.
I think something that's important too is that, a lot of people shy away from trying to chase their goals and their dreams and their aspirations because there's not a direct path. And something that I talk about a lot is that the path to success is filled with twists and turns, ups and downs. And here you are, you start out as, hey, I'm applying for an accounting job at a pet place. I'm sure subconsciously you're an ambitious person, so you always had ambitions to do more. But in and of itself, it's like, I'm just here to, do bookkeeping, right? And then this thing evolves to the point where a little over a year later, now you're starting your own business. And I think it's important for people listening and watching to understand that the path to success isn't exactly what you think it's going to be all the time. Sometimes you start in one place with a whole mindset that's completely different from where you might end up. And I think it's important for people to know that. So I want to, Angelo, I want to touch on your industry as a whole. Let's talk about virtual assistants and what they are. So, in a nutshell, tell me and tell the audience, what is a virtual assistant?
That's one of the hard things is people love to ask that. So I love to say, we are your administrative assistant. Think of whatever your idea of what an administrative assistant does. So whether they're responding to emails, whether you think of, the young lady that, whenever you watch a movie, oh, he'll be with you in a moment, please hold, he's booked right now. Whatever you think of what that person does or any administrative assistant does, if they were not physically there, would they still be able to do their jobs? In those times before, for a lot of people, unfortunately, a lot of people that I would even consider my client base or audience, they would say no. However, growing up in this age of technology, information, and how fast we're able to communicate, look how fast two people from two separate sides of the world were able to get on a meeting together. And
absolutely,
it's really evolved. So because of the different forms of communication and technology, that whatever you think of the assistant doing, sitting down at her desk, she is and he is no longer having to be actually there. They can be home and do that. So whatever you think that they do or you would ask them to do, I do that exact same thing. So you might say, hey, I'll move my booking from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock the next day. I need this email done. I need this order sent out. I want to make sure my kids are picked up. So send them a taxi, or in this case now an Uber, because you can schedule Ubers and Lyfts. And then make sure that my bills for my particular this house and this house are paid. You call them for everything. I say I'm the Jarvis for your business. If you watch Iron, I'm Jarvis for your business.
Well, let me ask you this. Maybe you could do it like this so we can simplify it for the audience so they can visualize everything. Mm-hmm. Give me like a bullet point list. If we were to say, give me 5 bullet points of what a virtual assistant does, because sometimes it could be like what, answering your emails for you, scheduling your meetings. So
I do that
maybe
too.
Give me 5 to 10 bullet points of this is what it is, and maybe that'll help really paint a clear picture for the audience.
I'll do some things that I'm actually doing. So I'm doing I'm data mining. Someone has a piece of paper with a bunch of addresses on it, pull out all the addresses that are businesses. I'm doing return emailing, making sure that clients get thank you emails, making sure that emails are getting sent out so schedules can get set up for scheduling, booking appointments, booking for people to meet like this. So say this was a big person, me and you would have met because I scheduled that appointment. I would have reached out to you. Answering phones, this lady reached out to me saying that she's starting a new business and says she needs someone to get, customer service done, replying to Instagram, getting social media done. I also can do website setups, website maintenance. If you can think of it and it can be done on the computer, I can do it. If it can be done on your computer, I can do it because of my software. I'm able to access your computer. So as long as I have access, to your computer, I can do whatever you need me to do that you would do on your computer.
Why do you think that this industry has grown so much over the years? Is it the technology?
People are lazy.
Is it how busy people are? Is it a combination of things? What do you think?
A combination of people being busy, and the biggest one is people lazy. People pay for anything in America, and that's really the basis of it. You can
kind of like people are willing to spend money for time. But what they do, so I'll give you an example. For me, I recently hired somebody to clean my house, but it's so I can get 3 hours, 6 hours a month back so I can work. Yes. So for those 6 hours, I'm not sitting on my ass watching Game of Thrones and Tiger King, right? What I'm doing is like literally working, right? And what you're saying is some people just got more money than they have ambition, right? So they might want to watch Tiger King and go fishing, and they can hire someone like yourself that can come in and do virtual tasks for them. Is that correct?
Yes. Or even in your situation where you might want to work, you might want to get extra time to work because you just need extra things done. So it can work either way.
Yeah.
Your 6 hours of free time is what you choose to do with it, whether you choose to mentally heal, physically heal, go harder on your work, tend to your kids, make sure that you take your wife out on a date. Your 6 hours are your 6 hours, but you got your 6 hours back. And that's what is really more valuable to you than anything, is that those 6 hours.
Yeah, for me, having that 6 hours to do all of those things except cleaning is more important to me, and because it's just for me, cleaning doesn't do anything therapeutically. It doesn't do anything for me, for my business and my family. So if I can afford the ability to pawn that off, I do that. So let me ask you this: so how can you be somebody's virtual assistant in a different part of the world then?
Yes. It takes a dedicated virtual assistant. Now, let me make that clear. Because that's me. I'm going to be a virtual assistant in a different part of the world. I am a world traveler. I love to travel. I go across the countries. And so that's what I really would like to do, and one of the reasons I started this business. So it does take a dedicated virtual assistant, because you're going to have to work against time zones depending on who your clients and where your clients are. But if you do decide to go worldwide, no matter what, no matter where you are, you're going to have to face those time zone differences. So, I mean,
Right. So let me ask you this: like, I'm here, I'm in Minnesota, you're in Connecticut, and I call you up and I say, hey, I'm looking for some help because I need somebody to manage my social media because I'm just getting overwhelmed with that. Is that something that can be done?
Yes, it is. It depends on the person's budget. Obviously, the first thing I'd ask them is, are they managing, their platforms with the social media tool? I actually wrote an article about different apps and tools that can help you go virtual for your own self, for your own business and everything. So I
Yeah.
always like to ask, are you posting on each platform individually, natively, or do you have, a social media manager tool where you can post all from one place at the same time? And then
Yeah.
from there,
Yeah.
I can either manage that, or I can do what you do. I can just take over and do what you do. Now, I always say get a platform because it's going to cost. However, you'll save time on using me, because I'm not going to be wasting my time posting directly.
Sure. So what do you think? Not shouldn't say what do you think, but what are the most common things that you find yourself being hired to do?
Emailing. That is, for some reason, one of the largest things. People are like, yeah, I'm inundated with emails and responses that I just don't want to do. You know, I I don't know what it is. I thought emails were easy. I guess that's kind of why I do them. But people are like, yeah, I get so time consumed in responding to things that don't even need to be responded to right now, or trying to think of a response, because we have to form and articulate ourselves and everything. You might prefer to do proposals, and they just get inundated with the very small things like updating social media management and doing data mining. A lot of people have issues with just doing research.
So if somebody hires you to answer their emails for them, are you completely left on your own to answer those emails, or do you have to run it by them first? I mean, how do you decipher between what emails you're going to answer, what's supposed to be said? How does that work?
I have my sit down with the client before I hire, or not hire, before I work with any particular person or client. I like to get to know them, because as a virtual assistant, the personal connection has to really be there, because you're not actually physically there. So you have to really cultivate that relationship with who you're working with, so you have an understanding of what they want. And then most importantly, ask. So I always have a set of questions that I ask them. Hey, would you prefer that I responded to emails on my own, or would you like me to just respond to what you would like me to respond to, that are regular, everyday stuff, and then flag what is it very important that would require your attention and you to respond, and then you can respond to it, at the end of the day. And now you only have 3 emails to look at because they're flagged, versus scaling through everything. So
Gotcha.
you have to really just ask how they operate.
So you can kind of for that particular skill set, or for that particular service, let me say, you are kind of acting as a filter between the business person and their email, to kind of say, let me filter through what's important and what's not important based on the things that we've talked about. I can
Right.
respond based on our conversation. You've given me
Mm.
permission to respond to this level of email. I'll respond to those. And the other ones that we know that are a priority that you need to respond to right
Right.
away, I'm going to send those to you. And when you see they're coming from me, that's going to trigger you to say, okay, Angelo sent me this. This is important. I need to get on this now.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it
Okay.
it literally makes it so if you had, time in your day where you're like, okay, I'm not sitting here responding to emails and thinking about what has to be done and what I should reply to now or later. You had, say, that can be a 3-hour job. I don't know if you know that. People can spend up to 3 hours a day contemplating and just looking through their emails. So if
Absolutely.
you had 3 hours where you're doing whatever, and you're just like, okay, whenever something important comes through, you can respond to it then and there, and it's done, because that's the only thing you have. You're much more efficient in your time.
Yeah. And I mean, I know what that's like. I have, a couple of different businesses, and right now I have like 5 different email accounts. So
Yeah.
it's a little difficult sometimes, because one thing that I've learned, and I'm learning to get better about this, but I shouldn't say one thing I've learned. One thing I've realized about today's technology, because we do have so much access to each other, the person on the other end is now has a higher expectation of you getting back to them sooner, right? And right, wrong, or otherwise, that's just how it is in 2020, right? It's like
Right.
text message, email, a social media message, and if they can see that you've read it, oh my God,
Oh.
I mean, you got like 15 minutes to respond. Otherwise, like, and it's funny because on your end, when you are a busy person and you have a lot going on, sometimes you might have seen it, but you just don't have the headspace to craft a response to that. So I can
Exactly.
see where that would be great to have somebody that can come in there and do that for you. So let's talk a little bit about your business before we wrap up. We've kind of touched a little bit already on some of the services you offer through this discussion. Is there anything else besides the emails and the data mining, social media management? Are there any other things, setting up schedules? Anything else that you do in particular that you say, hey, I do really well, and this is where I think I separate myself?
Well, I consider myself a specialized virtual assistant. There's 2 levels of virtual assistants. Virtual assistants would do regular, every normal stuff, and then specialized virtual assistants where they have a niche. As a specialized virtual assistant, my niche is bookkeeping, and accounting work, if you will. Not a lot of people, one, like that kind of work. Two, even if they don't mind it, it's just that is probably one of the most time-consuming parts of any business. From keeping track of your receipts, the entire bookkeeping process is just so long and inundated. That's where I really come in and specialize in, because I have methods and tactics where I cut it down all the way. So even if you don't need me to do your entire bookkeeping process, I can put in things, systems in place so that it makes your bookkeeping process faster.
Absolutely. So what kind of clients is your business currently working with, and what kind of clients does your business currently have experience working with?
Very small businesses, usually solo owners or owners that have no more than 8 employees. The most recent one is just someone who actually is not necessarily a full-on business owner right now. She's more or less working with First Data as her primary source, and then the travel on the side. However, working with someone who's in the professional industry, it's primarily all parents at this point. Professional parents is how I'd classify it. Work people that work and have their own side hustles, not necessarily businesses. They can even own businesses, but we'll classify them as entrepreneurial hustles at this point, and just listen, I want to spend this time with my kids. That's why the newest lady hired me. She said her daughter just turned like a teenager, and she wants to spend that time, these teenagers, with the family.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she wants me to do all the long and hard work.
Okay. And what kind of businesses do you want to work with? What, like, if in an ideal world right now, we're on YouTube right now, we're on our podcast right now, we're calling out to the world, and we're calling out to these businesses out here. Who should be working with your company right now?
I don't go by business. I go by needs. So I don't like saying, hey, if you're in this business or you're in this business, you should call me. No. I say if you just need an extra hour, because it's not, I don't even have to do just business. Running and what a lot of people fail to realize, because a lot of my clients have been women, and I've learned a lot when talking to these women. And what a lot of men fail to, mistaken and realize is running the house is a full business. That in and of itself is like running a business. So if you were, a mom, and you, especially now during coronavirus, you're a parent, a teacher, a cook, all these other things, and you really just want an hour to yourself, how can I help you do that? I'll make sure the bills get paid. I'll make sure that everything is all set up so that when the kids when the kids do go back to school and everything, or camp, I don't know which comes first, they can get picked up in an Uber, and you have an hour to yourself every day instead of doing that. Because that's really who needs my services. The people that are like, yo, I just need an extra hour in my day where I can either relax, work out, or work.
Okay. All right. And if somebody wants to get in contact with you about your services, how can they get in contact with you, man?
SVAofamerica.com. Simply as
SVA?
SVA. S as in special, V as in virtual, A as in assistant, @ofamerica.com.
All right. All right, Angelo, do you have any last words that you want to say before we wrap up? Is there anything you want to say to our audience out there today before we pull the plug on this interview here?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I love just talking. I love being interviewed. This is my first interview, so I appreciate you guys hosting and me giving my first interview on this podcast. So I appreciate you guys so much. Shout out Minnesota.
Well, man, hey, I appreciate you coming on and reaching out to me. This was a great idea, and I definitely think, man, your future is bright. I really respect your hustle, your grind, and your consistency, man. So, and I think we met through Gary Vee, right? That was it.
Yes,
Gary
it
Vee
is.
post? Yeah. So, to anybody out there who's not listening to Gary Vee,
go listen to Gary Vee.
Get on it, man. Right? Get on it, right?
That's
I don't think we wouldn't be talking right now if it wasn't for that man, correct?
Probably not. Maybe not. Yeah, I probably wouldn't even be going hard as I am right now without listening to Gary Vee. I would not be going this hard, probably.
Yeah. We're all our own little Gary Vee cult, you guys. So why don't you go ahead and join it? And hey, we're trying to start our own little subsets of that by creating our own content. So, Angelo, I want to thank you again for coming on today. It was a pleasure having you. Before we go, we are recording on Mother's Day, so I just want to send a shout out to all the mothers out there. I hope you have a beautiful day today. I hope you enjoy your time with your families. Hey, and we will talk to you guys later down.
Hey Ramblers, before you go, make sure you're following us on social media at Assistance HQ across the board for all content and exclusives. And for an even more personal touch, subscribe to our weekly newsletter with the link in the description.